Hi. As I'm sure you're aware, flooding has caused us to cancel this month's First Sunday Faith Formation. In lieu of being able to meet, I wanted to make this video and tell you a few of my thoughts on Advent and then tell the story of Advent. I think a lot of times in our society, in our culture, in our lives, we forget what Advent is all about. We get so focused on Christmas and giving and receiving gifts and all the wonderful treats and all the wonderful things that come with Christmas. We forget that Advent is its own season and that Advent is very important. The theologian N.T. Wright says that Christmas has become cozy, but Advent calls us to stay awake. And why? Why do we want to stay awake? We want to stay awake because this season is the most anticipated season of history, of all time. Let me take a few minutes and tell you the story of Advent in a brief form. In the beginning, God created everything, and it was perfect. But deceived, humanity rebelled against God and continued to walk in our brokenness. And God made a great promise to restore our relationship and to atone for humanity's sin. So God sent men to share this promise, and these men were called prophets. The prophets proclaimed the promise of rescue, so God's people waited in hope. Now, after many generations, the voices of the prophets stopped, and there was nothing but silence. For 400 years, the people of God waited, and they wondered if they'd ever again hear God's voice. The years of silence were finally broken when God sent an angel to a priest named Zechariah. Now, unable to have children, Zechariah and his wife Elizabeth would have a son, the angel said, and they were to name him John. This promise fulfilled prophecy that John would lead God's people and prepare the way of the Lord. Soon after, God sent the angel Gabriel to visit a very special young Jewish girl named Mary. Mary was frightened, but the angel Gabriel said to her, "Do not be afraid." Gabriel told her that she had found great favor with God and that she would be blessed, greater than any other human. She was going to give birth to a king. The child would be the anticipated Son of God. In her humble belief, Mary responded, "I am your servant." Now, Mary was betrothed to an honorable man named Joseph. When Joseph found out Mary was pregnant, he didn't believe the story of the angel. She couldn't be pregnant because she was a virgin. So God sent another angel to convince him that this was good, and it was indeed the work of the Holy Spirit. So Joseph believed God, and he took Mary as his wife. Now, ready to give birth, Mary and Joseph were forced to return to Bethlehem. And unable to find a room at the inn, their only option was to stay outside in the stable. Now, after giving birth to this baby, Mary wrapped the child in swaddling cloths and placed him in a manger. Fulfilling hundreds of years of prophecy, the Messiah is here, and his name is Jesus. And the wait is over, the silence is broken, and God is with us. The birth announcement of Jesus changed everything. History was interrupted. And as news spread of the birth of the Messiah, many traveled to worship this promised king. Some 30 years later, before returning home to heaven to be with the Father, Jesus fulfilled everything necessary for humanity's rescue. Jesus is with us, but now we long to be with him in his glory. So in celebration, in preparation, and in humble anticipation, we wait this Advent. I'd like to close with an excerpt from St. John Chrysostom, a phenomenal preacher from many centuries ago. And this is an excerpt from his Nativity sermon. He says, "What shall I say, and how shall I describe this birth to you? For wonder fills me, and this fills me with astonishment. The Ancient of Days has become an infant. He who sits upon the sublime and heavenly throne now lies in a manger. And he who cannot be touched now lies subject to the hands of men. He who has broken the bonds of sinners is now bound by an infant's bands. He has decreed that disgrace shall become honor, that infamy will be clothed in glory, and total humiliation the measure of his goodness. For he assumed my body, that I may become capable of his word. Taking my flesh, he gives me his spirit, so that he bestowing and I receiving, he prepares for me the treasure of life. He takes my flesh to sanctify me. He gives me his spirit that he may save me. So come then, let us observe the feast. Truly wondrous is the whole chronicle of the Nativity, for this day the ancient slavery is ended. The devil is confounded, the demons take to flight, the power of death is broken. Paradise is unlocked, the curse is taken away, sin is removed from us, error is driven out, truth has been brought back. The speech of kindliness is diffused, and it spreads on every side. A heavenly way of life has been planted here on earth, and angels communicate with men without fear, and men now hold speech with angels. Why is this? Because God is now on earth, and man in heaven, and on every side things commingle, because he became flesh. This Advent, let's remember how pivotal, how monumentally important Christmas is, and the redemption of mankind through the coming of Jesus Christ has been achieved. But this Advent season, let us join with the people of Israel in awaiting the coming of the Messiah. Thank you. Have a great Advent and a very Merry Christmas. We'll see you in January.